Until then, it's me, Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans, and the name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now, and you know what we do. We own the Tri-Cities with the best guests, hardest-hitting lineup in the market, hardest-hitting opinions, too. That's usually what I say here on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio, or you can listen to us jetbroadcasting.live, or you can listen to us and watch us here on Facebook Live, either live or archived. You know, go back, watch the show, see this handsome face of mine. I used to always think when I hear TV talk shows, you know, once upon a time, it was not that uncommon to have a talk show on TV that was sort of a call-in, people would call in with interviews, that sort of thing. This was before, you know, satellites and all that sort of stuff. And I used to always think, because the host was always so dominant. And I, of course, if I was going to participate, I'd be a mere caller. And so I'd think that, you know, you'd have host up here and caller down here. And boy, that could be intimidating. Is that going to work? And then started realizing they're not paying callers to call up. And really, sports talk radio in 2019, it may not have always been this. There was once a time where it was more of a public forum type of thing. But that's what social media is kind of now for. And now it really is for opinion, hopefully with someone knowledgeable, as well as getting the best guests in the marketplace. And we think we've done that today. 12:15, just a few minutes from now, Graham Clark will join me. He used to coach at Dobbins Bennett, very successful there. Didn't win a state title, but was very successful there. And I remember doing a piece on him. He's actually been on the show before, and came away really liking him. Well, he stepped away from Dobbins Bennett for a year. Now he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Emory and Henry. And now with Dobbins Bennett, getting a new athletic director and all that, I'm just wondering what's going on there at DB. But really, what's going on at EH? Because I'm intrigued by that. I think that's a good hire for Emory and Henry. You can talk about the path that came to get there, but I think that's a good hire. I think that you're going to see a lot of people from these here parts, Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, really look to Emory and Henry to play football. They already have, let's face it. But, you know, in recent times, Wasps haven't been as good as they used to be when you could, you know, I remember in the 90s making those D3 playoffs. Could they do it again? 12:30, Schuler-Dixon. He's an Associated Press sports writer down in the Metroplex. Just did a big feature on Jason Witten's comeback. You know, Witten stepping away for a game, and okay, for a year. I say a game, a year. He's going to try to do something that hasn't been done a lot, a successful comeback. I was trying to think of people who stepped away for a period of time and then came back. And I guess you could kind of say Michael Jordan he came back twice, although he left in his prime A. And really, did he leave or did he play minor league baseball? He was still in an athletic endeavor. That'd be a little bit different than sportscasting didn't really work out. Didn't really work out for MJ as a baseball player. Came back, had some success there. The other comeback, but he came back a lot younger. The other comeback around the same period of time. Give me a minute to think. Mario Lemieux was in 18 and 1984, and he came back in late 2000. So he would have been, 36, about the same age as Witten. And he was away for about 3 years. He missed 97, 98, 98, 99, 99, 2000, and came back 2000, 2001. So he missed 3 years. And he had a very productive season when he came back. He led the Penguins to the Stanley Cup semifinals. After that, it really started to taper off, you know, and there was a hockey strike. Did win the gold medal for Canada. I would say Lemieux's comeback. I mean, a gold medal for Canada. They hadn't won it in 50 years. Canada hasn't won a gold medal in hockey for 50 years. Something is wrong. Lemieux was the captain of that team. He led him back in Salt Lake City. I mean, it was, regardless. But Schuler-Dixon is going to talk a little bit about wouldn't make the comeback. 12:45, my old friend Greg Brown. I got a great story about Greg Brown. But the Pirates and Braves have been playing. Braves beat the Buccos 7-5 in a rain-shortened game, but of course there was the brawl that wasn't, but Josh Donaldson, who suspended one game, a lot of people think that's going to be tomorrow. There's been a lot of discussion, and in fact, Greg Brown was in the booth with Steve Blass when Steve Blass was saying on a Pirates broadcast, basically, I don't know really if he said anything that big of a deal, but he made comments on Ron Acuna's jewelry. And it did seem, painfully old school because, heck, I could give you at least two teammates of Steve Blass who retired in 1974. Actually, he retired in 75, but his last Major League game was 74. He tried one last comeback in 75. Didn't work out. And he lost his control. He actually has written a book and said, I regained my control at age of 56. He's got his control back now. So, if he ever wanted to do batting practice, he's 77 years old, but I guess you could throw batting practice. He wouldn't be worried about hitting the hitter. Anyway, Greg Brown is his booth mate. He's been calling Pirate games since 1994. He's a friend of mine. Helped me out a lot when I was broadcasting minor league baseball. He's an old friend, and he'll join me talking Bucks and Braves. And also Will Craig down there in the Pirates system in AAA at Indianapolis. Last I looked, he was hitting .281 with 13 home runs, but there's that Josh Bell ahead of him who might be winning the MVP award this year. 1 o'clock, Lorinda Phillips. Now, Lorinda Phillips deals with athletes and helps them manage retirement. This is kind of interesting. Maybe I'll help control your wealth as well. Point of the matter is this. You've got a circumstance where they are looking at, when you're a professional athlete, sometimes you hear about this, they just blow through all their money. I was kind of worried about Johnny Manziel doing this, to tell you the truth, but you hear about this a lot, and she'll tell us a story about some, athletes who were millionaires, lost it all. How? And how does this help someone like you who might be investing, have some money in a bank? How do you not spend it all, assuming catastrophe doesn't hit or something? Medical bills or, tornado hits your home or something like that, and et cetera, et cetera. I said today I was going to begin the show talking about the 10 most overrated things in Tri-City sports. Here we go. This is a good right tone. I've had this on my mind. I'd write this up. This is the top 10 overrated things in the history of Tri-City sports. Number 10, and I don't think he's really overrated, but to make him the number one figure of the Bucks dynasty era, Les Robinson. I think the man to credit the dynasty of ETSU basketball back then, Mr. Jennings, Greg Dennis, Alan LaForce, and although Les Robinson was the AD, and he deserves praise, don't get me wrong, but it was LaForce who brought in Mr. Jennings. We all know that. Don't bury Les Robinson. He's charismatic. He scheduled well. He was the coach of record that rebuilt ETSU basketball. It's just that when that dynasty era, the glory years of ETSU basketball were nationally ranked, it was LaForce beating Robinson. It was LaForce who had the nationally ranked team. It was LaForce's team that won the NCAA tournament game against Arizona. I think, if you're ranking the all-time ETSU coaches, you've got to put LaForce. Didn't end well for him, but I do think you got to put him ahead of Robinson. My opinion. Most people wouldn't. I think you should. That's why I just put him number 10. Don't call him a bum by any means. He's far from that, 180 degrees. But just, sort of like the player that's good, but he's called great. That sort of thing. He's good. Number 9, Carl Torbush. Was there ever anyone more praised for an 11-22 record? I'll just leave it at that. The Appalachian League is my number 8. Because until Boyd Sports started taking over the franchises, the fact was pro sports in the market was something of an afterthought. Think about this. You'd pick up the Johnson City Press, Cardinals go on the road to Kingsport or Bristol, they wouldn't send a writer out to cover those games. And the attendance was usually low. Hear about the great players that pass through the Appalachian League, but frankly, it's low-level minor league baseball and doesn't have the greatest reputation in terms of the competition that is played there. Generally, the players that do come on to become stars pass through with very little fanfare, and it's a safe bet the game you watch will feature a future utility infielder in the majors rather than a Hall of Famer. Number 7. Local high school basketball. I got to say this here. There's never been an NBA player come from the Tri-Cities. Enough said. Okay? Number 6 is the Science Hill basketball dynasty of the 90s. Damon Johnson was the only player who did anything college basketball. That was starting at guard for a couple of bad Tennessee teams in the mid-90s. Wasn't exactly the most memorable player they've ever had. But you had back in that era, oh, Science Hill could beat ETSU. George Pitts should coach the team, which was ridiculous. You had Demetric Stevens should play at ETSU. He wound up playing D2 ball. All the while, Ed DeChillis, who was just rebuilding the basketball program, and really, it's still, going through, in my opinion, what DeChillis built with the 4 straight SoCon title that he won, 4 straight SoCon titles that he won. My opinion, Ed DeChillis still has a hand on the prominence that ETSU basketball has today. Number 5 that I think has been most overrated in the history of Tri-City sports was when ETSU lost to Oklahoma in the 89 NCAA tournament game. You have people bragging on this loss. You should not be bragging. I don't care if you are playing number 1. When you lose a 15-point lead, and in your final possession with 4 seconds left, you can't get the ball across half court. That's not something to brag on. And yet ETSU fans did for so long. Only 1 point away, closest a 16 seed ever came to beating number 1. Thank goodness UMBC beat Virginia a couple of years ago in the tournament. Because you know what? Bragging on a loss makes your program look awfully, awfully weak. And one wonders if being okay with being competitive against Oklahoma has started kind of the mindset that it's just okay for ETSU to make the NCAA tournament and anything else is gravy. Number 4 on a list of overrated Tri-City sports figures and entities would be the former ETSU athletic director, David Mullins, worst AD they ever had. They've named tennis courts after him. But they took the name Jim Mooney, didn't transfer it to the new baseball park, nor does John Robert Bell have a facility named after him. Either a new football stadium or the mini dome, which he helped build. How does that work out? Number 3, Freedom Hall. It's older than a mini dome. Bad concessions, nothing around it, except get off my lawn. Doesn't get events other than ETSU hoops. Let's face it, it doesn't. It makes ETSU look subservient to Science Hill because they're playing on the Science Hill campus. Where are the restrooms? The floor space is minuscule. Can't play hockey there. You can really only have basketball games there. Very modest floor space. You go to a concert, a rock concert, you want to be on the floor, right? It's obsolete. Yeah, I know the sight lines are better at Freedom Hall than a mini dome. I know 32 years ago, Aerosmith shot Ragdoll there. Market needs a new arena. Aerosmith can come back and shoot a new video, okay? Unfortunately, the area doesn't really think that big, so they don't demand a new arena. Number 2, hey, you could put me in with this. Local sports media, and I'm going to tell you why. Because too many members of the local sports media see themselves as extensions of the public relations department of the teams that they're covering rather than journalists. It's really bad on the high school level. Far too many quote-unquote sports media around here are also not willing to take a stand on a local issue. I'd like to think that I am. Most overrated thing, my opinion, Tri-City sports scene, the holiday basketball tournament in Bristol. You know what it is. It's named after a roast beef sandwich restaurant. You know, even when Dale Burns, who himself would be considered as one of the more overrated figures, if I thought he was worth ranking, was trying to promote this as a top high school basketball tournament in the world 20 years ago, when he was trying to do that, I used to hear coaches, they'd talk about it, and they'd say, well, you know what, we played in a better tournament down in Florida. I once questioned Burns about not announcing an injury to Ralph Sampson's son. He was playing in the tournament, but he got sick or he was injured. They didn't make an announcement. Just continued to draw in fans. Remember, Ralph Sampson's son. Do you think some Virginia Cavaliers fans were coming down to Bristol to watch him play, but then he never made an announcement? I asked him about it. He accused me of trying to stir up trouble, and then he banned me from the tournament. I don't miss that tournament at all covering it. You couldn't get me there. Anonymous teams beating up on locals in front of empty seats is not my idea of a good time. You want to talk about the economic impact? Draws maybe they say $1 million in. What would an NHL Winter Classic in BMS, you'd have to get rid of the high school basketball tournament to free up the hotel space, but what would that do if you had the Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes playing hockey there, Winter Classic, like we had with the Battle of Bristol? What do you think would bring in more money? You want to talk about an economic impact? There it is. That would absolutely dwarf a high school basketball tournament that's been on the decline for a generation. Hey, let the kids spend the holidays with their families. Come on. Just, high school basketball tournaments and the Christmas vacation, never were really big on them. We come back, Graham Clark, I'm big on him, says Emery and Henry. He's coming up after this.
Barter Theater is a